As human beings, we have this incessant need to respond. Your ex reaches out to you, you want to respond to him. You reach out to your ex, you want him to respond to you. But today, I want to tell you why no response is still a response. And if you stick around until the end of this video, I'm not only going to show you why I believe the power of silence is one of the most important things that you need to accomplish if you want to get your ex back, but why it might be the very thing that helps you get your ex back. But before you should even consider getting your ex back, you first need to determine whether or not you have a good chance of getting them back, so you know you're not wasting your time. Luckily, on my website, exboyfriendrecovery.com, I've put together a special quiz designed to answer this exact question. It's a simple, free 2-minute quiz designed to tell you what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. And all you have to do if you want to take it right here, right now, is simply look in the description link of this video and click on that link. It's that simple. Okay, let's start off by talking about the power of silence. Now, a lot of people, when they come to me, want to get their exes back, and I give them advice that maybe is a little odd to them at first. I give them this idea or this ideal they should strive towards with regards to the no contact rule. Basically, you ignore your ex for a certain set of time and don't respond when they reach out to you. Now, most people, when they hear that, they freak out and start thinking, no, I should not be doing that. That's not how things are done. But it might be the key to getting your ex back. And that's because the power of silence is one of the most impactful things you can do for your situation. If you don't believe me, well, listen up. First things first, I think we need to talk about one of the most difficult things for you to maybe hear. And that's the fact that ordinary people do not like solitude. But solitude is often where we can have epiphanies. It's often where we can make the biggest leaps and bounds with regards to our spirituality or our philosophies in life, or just simply learning what you are like. Most people do not like solitude because they don't like being alone. In fact, one of the very reasons that you want to get your ex back is because you don't like being alone. But solitude allows you to make use of it. It allows you to embrace the aloneness and realize that you are really one with the universe. Basically, it allows you time for self-reflection. Now, a lot of people don't ever do this, especially when I tell them, hey, during a no contact rule, when you're being silent, you need to be doing something active. And oftentimes, self-reflection is one of the best things that you can do, because with self-reflection come these great leaps in knowledge, especially knowledge of whether or not you should be getting back with your ex, right? So a lot of people, they sit there and obsess and put the blinders on and just focus on getting their ex back when they actually need to be doing the opposite. They need to be looking at the world without any blinders. They need to realize that their ex is just a small part of their overall life. And if you do that, it actually gives you more power and leverage if you do decide that you still want to get them back. But I can't tell you how often that people actually do this. They actually use the solitude to their advantage. Most of the time, people will sit there and feel sorry for themselves. They'll sit there and think to themselves, I'm really depressed. My ex is gone. What do I do? As opposed to thinking, you know what can I do to make the best of this moment? Here's what I have noticed in my 30 years on this earth. Human beings have a tendency to want to put things forth when they're not ready to be put forth. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, put plainly, we speak without thinking as opposed to thinking first without speaking. The simple fact of the matter that when it comes to an emotional thing like a breakup, emotions confuse you. Basically, they allow you to speak and say things you don't mean in the moment. Maybe you've noticed your ex say something like this with regards to you. He said, I never loved you, or I hate you. But when he says those things to you, not only does your heart break, but you actually take it at face value without maybe realizing that it's not exactly true. He, at one point, loved you very dearly. Maybe just at this point right now, he no longer has the same feelings. Or maybe the fact that he said he hates you, well, maybe he's really angry in the moment, but back then he didn't. And so what you need to understand is that as human beings, we're fluid people. We don't often feel the same things throughout our entire lives. We are capable of change. In fact, I think you can argue it is one of our greatest assets. The fact that we are beings that can change. Our feelings change, our circumstances change. So if you just get wrapped up in the things that your ex said, it can be a little difficult for you going forward. So you speak and you say things that dig yourself into a hole. The really big benefit of being silent, of using something like the no contact rule on your ex, is it allows you time to self-reflect so that when you do have things to say, they're impactful and they help progress you forward. In fact, this is one of the greatest reasons for you to adopt a show, don't tell mentality. So most people, when they think that they should say something to their ex, they tell something to their ex. I found it's a lot more impactful to show something to your ex. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you lost a bunch of weight and you're extremely proud of that fact. So your natural tendency the next time you talk to your ex, when you stop using silence or you stop responding to them and you actually start responding rather, you want to tell them about it. Hey, I lost 20 pounds. The better and a more impactful thing to do, in my opinion, is to show them. Post a super awesome photo of yourself on social media, not for just your ex to see, but for the whole world to see. So not only does your ex witness you showing him this amazing change and how proud you are of this weight loss, but also you get all sorts of feedback from friends, family, and maybe other potential lovers. Your ex sees this and grows maybe jealous of the fact that, hey, she's not sitting around feeling sorry for himself like I am. Now, the internet is full of amazing quotes, but perhaps one of my favorite quotes of all time has to do from someone who is anonymous. Here's what they had to say. Maybe you sit there and view your silence as a weakness, but I actually view it as the opposite. I think it is one of the most impactful things for you to do. After all, no response is essentially taking the show, don't tell mentality. When you deal with something like silence, where you're not responding to your ex, where you're implementing a no contact rule, there are natural fears that people have. So what I would like to say to you now is I want to show you what people think versus what actually we've seen happen. So the first big thing that people think when using silence is that their ex will forget about them. But here's what we've seen. We've actually seen the opposite is true. You see, there's this psychological theory called reactance, and it deals with behavioral freedoms. You have behavioral freedoms just like I have behavioral freedoms, and we're fine in our lives as long as we have those behavioral freedoms and those behavioral freedoms are recognized. But what happens if I take one of your behavioral freedoms away? Let's say I take your ability to walk away. What do? Well, you start thinking about walking a lot, and you do everything you can to get walking back. That's what you are essentially doing when you don't respond to your ex. So by utilizing the strategy of a no contact rule or just simply not responding to your ex, you're actually doing the opposite of making them forget you. You're making them remember because your silence is speaking louder than words. So the next big thing that people think is that the no contact rule or silence works differently for men than it does for women. Here's the truth. People saying that haven't done the research. There's almost no difference. I will concede that women have a little bit more of power during the no contact rule. I've seen the no contact rule work just as well for men who are trying to use it to get their girlfriends back as compared to women who are trying to get their ex-boyfriends back. So from my opinion and everything that I've seen, there's really not much of a difference. So I don't think there's a lot of merit in that thought. And then of course we have the people who think that the no contact rule is something that you should only use to get over an ex. Well, here's what we found. I actually think that can be true, but we've also found that it works extremely well for getting an ex back. So here's how we view the no contact rule. It shouldn't be looked at in this straight and narrow way. In fact, that's looking at the no contact rule with blinders on. In fact, I look at the no contact rule as a choose your own adventure scenario. You can start off wanting your ex back and then midway through decide you don't want them back anymore. Or you can start off not wanting your ex back and using the no contact rule only to realize you do want them back. One of the benefits of using the no contact rule is it gives you time to make these difficult decisions. And oftentimes when you're making difficult decisions, you shouldn't do them when you're in a highly emotional state. And the no contact rule helps kind of level you out emotionally if you can be active. And then of course we come to the biggest fear of the no contact rule. And that's that if they use a no contact rule on their ex, or if they use something like silence on their ex will just move on to someone else. So here's what I have to say about that. If indeed you're in a situation where your ex has moved on to someone else, what you really need to look at is how fast they moved on to someone else and also how quickly you implemented a no contact rule. I find that sometimes the correlation can be a little bit off. Maybe when you go through your breakup, if immediately you're using the no contact rule and your ex is moving on to someone else, we would find a correlation there. But what often we see happen is people learn about the no contact rule after the fact. So here's what really happens. Their ex breaks up with them and they learn about the no contact rule 2 months later. And then maybe a month after that, their ex has moved on to someone else. But here's the thing, the no contact rule is always most effective if used immediately after a breakup. And oftentimes what we find from our clients who do use the no contact rule immediately after a breakup is the opposite happens. They start obsessing about their exes more. And if their ex is moving on immediately after their breakup and they're using the no contact rule, it's usually a rebound relationship. So that's why I think that no response is still a response. And in fact, sometimes no response is the best response. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you haven't already, make sure you stop everything you're doing and take our Ex Recovery Chances quiz. You can take that quiz by simply looking at the link in the description of this YouTube video and clicking on it. It's that simple. Also, if you haven't liked, commented, or subscribed to our channel, please do that. We love when you do that. I'll dance or something at the end of the video if you do that.